What was the NAV line that we were absolutely flabbergasted at?
Fucking her like a dog. She at my house. She watched my pets too. The fuck?
That was one of our reactions to Nav's new album. And if you guys want to check out the full live stream, link in description. But let's get into this, man, because Nav just dropped Demons Protected by Angels. And a lot of people were hyped for this drop because a Nav tracklist is usually really fun to go through. You're obviously going to get your fair share of corny bars, but you're also going to get your fair share of bangers. So let's get into the artist performance. Objectively speaking, where do you think Nav strived on this album? And where do you think he could maybe improve for the next tracklist that's coming up?
Listen, Nav's performance on this album was super weak. I'm not going to lie to you. And I think it's often because he's trying to do too much. If it's him like turning up his vocal processor, or if it's him abusing auto-tune to the point that he sounds robotic, the vocals kind of just sound plastic to me for the majority of this track list. And I feel like what's also interesting, and we're not actually going to be doing content for this review just because it is more of a trap release. The content isn't really playing a major role here, but I do have to mention that like he kind of has no sense of any topical focus. For example, on a song like One Time, he'll go from being very vulnerable, talking about something like self-harm, and then 5 seconds later, he's rapping about a girl that seemingly wants to fuck him.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I'm kind of left wondering, like, how is this flowing well?
Yeah, and another thing for me too is that like throughout the whole track list, he sounds super sleepy, bro. Like there's no energetic performances, and I understand that Nav's, I think one of his sickest capabilities, at least in my opinion, like listening to something like Perfect Timing or even Self-Titled, is that melodic crooning. I think it's something that he's really good at, and when it's matched with good atmospheric productions, it's good. But I just felt like in this case, it wasn't done too well. And for a lot of the times, it goes back to your point. Like, you'll listen to a singing performance or two, and it sounds screechy in your headphones, or it sounds like shit's clipping, and you're wondering, like, okay, you know, how could this be good singing performances on the album?
I think it can only be good when he's not overcomplicating things. I feel like when Nav is giving you that simple crooning on a song like Don't Compare, or let's say the hook on Baby, when he's not like overextending his notes,
even
or
something
trying
like
to sing
Destiny
in a different register.
Something like Destiny was good too because like it wasn't overcomplicated. Like there was certain instances.
But I'm just saying, in certain moments, he'll try a high pitch and like his vocals just fall flat.
And not only that, but I also want to, because we're gonna go into the features right after this. But there was certain points, example, where he would be on songs with singers like Bryson Tiller on Reset, or let's say Realist K on Lost Me, and you know he's having singing performances or even melodic crooning next to them, and you could understand the dip off in quality, and it really ruins the track to a certain extent. Where, you know, let's say he would have tracks with The Weeknd in certain instances, let's say in his previous catalogs, where okay, he's obviously not going to have singing performance as good as The Weeknd, but his melodic crooning is nice enough to complement that. Where I feel as if here it was really just, it wasn't done well whatsoever.
It wasn't at all, and I think that like even when he's trying to like pour his heart out and really put his emotions on display, it's just his approach and the subject matter makes it all feel weightless, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that the artist performance is bad.
Yeah, the artist performance was
I
bad.
do want to go through some memorable bars though. I ain't DM her twice because she answered the first time that I slid on a weirdo.
W.
Definitely DM'd her twice. Then you have In Another Dimension, I hope I get dementia to get you out of my memory on Lost Me. And you have,
what else you got?
They just took my left hand, now I'm gonna live without a limb on Mismatch. And then last but not least, I ain't no industry plant, my money grow on trees, do you understand me, on Wrong Decisions. And there's so many fucking cheesy lines.
Yeah, you could go through this whole album and really nitpick it, you know, with genius, but we're not going to do that to Nav. But let's go on to the features.
Kind of just did. But let's go into the features. We had 10 features on this album, and they do not do enough for the most part to save these tracks. And I feel like for the most part, nearly every feature managed to body Nav on his own song.
Yeah, that's for sure. And honestly, like I think this is definitely the strongest part of this track list. Like this is low key like a big part of this album experience is those features. And I want to start off with Baby on Never Sleep. And I think that more and more that I hear this song, because it was released as a single, the more and more I'm starting to really fuck with his verse. He went in, he absolutely ripped it apart. Travis, substandard for him. I mean, he just did his thing on there. You're not going to get anything too crazy, but I do think that the best feature on this track list was Realist K on Lost Me. Fantastic vocal performance, and as I was saying before, it does feel like when Nav is trying to play with a lot of these features, he can't keep up, and it kind of ruins the chemistry on the track list. But that's not a product of the features themselves, that's just them actually putting in solid performances that make sense for that respective song. So going through the feature list, do you feel like it matched the vibe of the album? And going through this track list, like do you find maybe some other artists could have been added in certain areas? Do you feel like maybe he should have stripped some come off of the track list. How do you feel about it as a whole?
Drake apparently was supposed to be on this album, but they ended up choosing to leave the song off of there. I could have seen him fitting on the song Don't Compare. That would have been a nice addition. But in terms of the features, like you said, Realist K on Lost Me was the highlight to me. Super clean vocals, very angelic on the chorus, and he kind of just put Nav in the corner. He's like, let me show you how to give a nice singing performance. Then you have Uzi, who gave 2 high-octane performances on Deadshot, and then on the other one, which I believe was called Interstellar.
Yes.
And on the first one, Deadshot, he was skating on that beat. Loved what he did. He really slid on there. But I will say that he does attempt like this Dirk flow at one point in that song.
Yeah, I think it's at the beginning of the verse where he tries to like overextend some of like the last words of his lines, and it does sound like it. But what I like about the Uzi performances is that they're super high octane, as you said, but they make sense for the tracks. And I like that Uzi's going into this new direction where he's spitting at these high paces, and I did like it for this track list. One feature I was really disappointed with was Future on One Time, because Don Toliver has one of the best hooks that I've heard all year, and Future comes in, bro, and I think I'm going to pull up the lyrics for you. Literally starts off his verse.
Just awkward inflections, bro. That's
listen,
what it is, man.
Pretty, bomb, 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 lucky, lucky charm, yeah, 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 yeah. And the way that it starts, and obviously, like, I don't know how Future's flow or cadence, so it's going to sound different in this review, but go back to that second verse on this song, and you'll see what I mean. Like, kind of sucks the energy out of the track. And listen, Nav doesn't do any better on that first verse, but Don Toliver is literally the saving grace of this whole song.
He carried the fuck out of that song, bro. But I want to talk about Lil Durk on My Dog, which is decent. I just feel like when he was doing like these tonal shifts, going from like his regular tone to more something high pitch, that kind of didn't really seem as seamless as it could have been. Although he is like dropping some heart-wrenching gems about his brother. That was cool to see. Gunna also had one of the best features on Playa.
That's facts.
He found some nice pockets that he was easily transitioning from one to the next on that track, even though, you know, he's rhyming about getting deep-throated and some random shit. It doesn't even matter. You're not there for that. You're there just for the different types of pockets he's able to go into. Apart from that, Bryson Tiller on Reset had a good performance.
Yeah, verse 2 was nice
from him.
Absolutely, yeah, it was cool too, because like it wasn't like a crazy singing performance. It was more of like a stretched out verse, and everything, like looking at the writing, like connected well. Writing was super clean, so I enjoyed that as a whole. But how do you feel about the track list, bro? Like, you know, and how like the features came into it, especially like Babyface Rare on Mismatch was pretty good too, having a final verse there. How do you feel like it fit the album as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely fit the album, but they showed like it made Nav look worse when placed side by side with them. That's kind of my takeaway from it. But I think overall the features were good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the features were good. Yeah,
kind
they're respectable.
One of the only like silver linings out of the album.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean?
Like I still think it's a crime that Don Toliver didn't have that track by himself. He should have definitely kept that. But okay, let's go on to the production, because Nav is a fantastic producer, bro. People don't understand like how many good placements this guy has, and like what he's been doing not only for the Toronto scene but in the trap scene, bringing like, you know, these atmospheric and I would say colder type of tempos to certain tracks, and the way that he's also able to create massive trap bangers. And I love Nav as a producer, but the soundscape on this album felt low key flat, and it's crazy because I got a mix of like, you know, slappers with, let's say, like knocking 808s, but then you get some more not melodic, but atmospheric productions at certain instances. So how do you feel about the production as a whole going into this?
Bro, I feel like the drums were not fucking hitting hard enough, to be honest with you, and that's something that you expect off of NAV projects. Production was mainly handled by Wheezy, Tay Keith, Pro Logic, NAV himself, of course, and my highlight, I guess, production-wise, would be a lot of the synth choices, especially on a song like Ball and Peace, where you have those 80s-inspired synths on the back end of that. I also love the Mike Dean touches on the outros of Count On Me, the intro, and then Never Sleep. Loved what he did there. And it was just, I feel like there was a lot of weird beat selections. For example, on a song like Demons in My Cup, right away you hear that it's a Yeet type beat with the distorted drums and the hyper pop type sounds.
And like that's where I want to butt in. I don't find Nav suits those types of beats whatsoever, to be honest with you, because it kind of forces him to have to speed up his flow and kind of force certain lines. And I don't think that he could ride those types of productions as well as he does on certain types of instances where, again, he has atmospheric productions. The drums are a bit slower, and you know, you could go into something like, let's say, a song like Up or Myself, shit that has like a nicer tone to it. When he has to kind of like accelerate his flow and try to fit so many words just to be able to keep up with the production, I feel like that's when you start to see a dip, not only in his performance, but in the production as a whole, just because it kind of ruins the song to a certain extent. So yeah, I do agree with you. And
what do you think of the transitions on here? Because there was one from Last of the Mohicans to One Time that was really good.
It was good, but I mean, like, just overall, the sequencing on this album is definitely not going to be like a main part of this track list.
It's
like,
not.
It's as you said, you did have Last of the Mohicans going on to One Time. Like, that was a clean transition, and I think One Time is a really nice production as well. Super atmospheric, as I said before. I love the synths on that song, and I love how Don Toliver came through and matched his vocals with it. But for the rest of the track list, like, you're going to be going from those types of productions to like something that sounds like it was made by Yeet, you know? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah,
So,
I just felt like it was super lackluster, super generic in terms of the types of trap beats that he chose. And other silver lining was Don't Compare, which sounded like it was produced by Noah 40 Shabib. Love the build-up and the sample that was used there. But overall, yeah, I just felt like the production did not really keep me entertained all throughout. And it almost felt forgettable. It felt like Nav's vocals were really all you were really hearing. That's what was kind of blaring through my headphones listening. And it's not the best sound.
yeah,
to the
it's
ear.
definitely not like an ear massager. So,
No.
production mid, I think that, listen, there could definitely be improvements in this soundscape, more cohesion. As you said, harder drums, like better sequencing, a nicer soundscape. And it's because Nav is a fantastic producer. So maybe next time we have to see him produce his whole album himself. But let's go into the replay values. So, you know, you could always have conversations about Nav's catalog and how it ends up hitting you in your rotation. I mean, if you guys have been watching the podcast, you know how big of a fan Lou and I are of Self-Titled. I know you have songs off of Perfect Timing that you keep into your rotation. Even going into something like Emergency Tsunami, you're going to be finding bangers. But through this, man, I think the replay value is just bad overall, bro. Like, I really don't see myself visiting all that much of this. It's a forgettable track list, and if I really had to say the tracks I'm going back to, hold on, let me pull back up this track list. I would probably say Don't Compare could be something I go back to in the future. I would say maybe even Lost Me, but his performance was too weak for me to even consider it.
Yeah.
And I would say, listen, I've been listening to Never Sleep. It's good, but it's nothing like revolutionary. Maybe even Baby.
It's probably
if I
the
had
weakest
to.
Travis Nav collaboration for me.
Yeah.
In terms of songs I'm keeping, not much, bro. I mean, I would say maybe Deadshot for Uzi. Baby was not bad. I'm going to say Don't Compare was also pretty decent, but Nav kind of lied to us on this album, bro, because if you go to Wrong Decisions, he has a line where he raps, making hits, I know I just don't miss, but he missed on like pretty much the whole fucking track list.
Yeah, the track list wasn't that
kind of
great.
blindsided us because that was on the single, bro.
I know, but listen, I mean, I guess what's good about a Nav album is that you could always go in and at least grab a couple of songs out of the track list and add them to your playlist. In this instance, that was meant for me, but when you have to look at it, like, objectively speaking, if you're only taking like 2 tracks out of a 19-song like album, the replay value is pretty fucking bad, you know? Like, you're not going to be going back to this. Plus, as I said, you have Self-Titled, you have Perfect Timing, you have Emergency Tsunami to go back to if you want those Nav bangers. So going into this, kind of underwhelming on that end, at least
Definitely
for me.
bad replay value. So in terms of overall thoughts, album of the year, what are you saying?
Listen, you know, it's not as bad as I thought, you know, maybe going into it would have been, just because, like, I haven't liked some of his most recent releases, and obviously, you know, shit has never really, like, lived up to that Self-Titled, you know, mixtape, like, call it mixtape, album feel, whatever the fuck you want to say, for like that drop back in 2017. So looking at this, man, I don't know where to start, bro. Like, you're only going to be grabbing 2 to 3 tracks out of this, out of a 19-song track list. So automatically, that kind of puts you on kind of a lower end, you know, sort of vibe. I mean, you're not getting Nav's best performance out of his whole catalog. So there's that as well. If you want to come in for Nav's production, what are you really getting out of it, man? Like, you're not getting much out of him on that end as well, so there's nothing to grab out of that. Features were good, though. I got some good features. Baby did his thing. Uzi ripped it. Same thing for Realist K. Like, there's certain instances where I do find glimpse of hope throughout the track list. Just not an album for me, though. But I hope Nav fans enjoy it. I mean, it's always nice to see him drop, so just not for me at the end of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's maybe one of the most boring listens of the entire year, and I had a hard time, bro, keeping my eyes open, you know, during a lot of this listen, and I feel like it's just another, you know, lackluster Nav album where it suffers from a bloated track list, recycled themes. I mean, you learned a few things from Nav, but literally only a few things about him flexing his net worth or him liking to go shopping. Apart from that, also suffers from some generic production. And I also feel like this is an album that shows you how exhausting minimalistic trap beats and auto crooning can be.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like at a certain point, it's going to become mind numbing, and I know there's people that enjoy it, but it's just not for me at the end of the day. Especially like when it comes to 2022, like there's only so many.
But
of these
we're NAV
projects
supporters, bro.
I know,
you know
no,
what I mean?
no, I get you absolutely. But,
I expected this to be much better.
I know we're NAV supporters, but we have to be unbiased about this.
For
It's
sure,
not
we
that
do.
great of a project. So overall, I think the project was mid. It's not a bad album. It's
Close
just,
to bad, though.
It's
That's for
just
fucking sure.
It's really like. It's there. You know, you can make the argument that it is a bad album, but at the end of the day, if you look at our scores, it equals up to mid. So, guys, let me know how you feel about this project in the comment section, and let me know, like, what's your favorite Nav song? Because Lou and I have been fans of him for quite some time now. We have a lot of tracks that we like from him, but this album just wasn't it for us. So, guys, thank you so much for watching this review, and we'll catch you on the next one.